Chapter 421. Xianxia silently looked at Li Qiye, secretly shaking her head. She knew Li Qiye was somewhat unfathomable, yet she couldn't understand where Li Qiye's confidence came from. Daring to challenge the raging immortal holy nation with his strength alone. One must know that in the Eastern 100 cities, the raging immortal holy nation was absolutely not easy to provoke. Even the grand sects and powerful nations of the Eastern 100 cities were unwilling to antagonize the raging immortal holy nation. Xianxia's caution was not without reason. The raging immortal holy nation was indeed very powerful. Their foundation was even stronger than that of newly rising great sects like the Sacred Heaven Church. Regrettably, Xianxia fundamentally did not know that Li Qiye simply did not put the raging immortal holy nation in his heart. Even the powerhouses of the Azure Profound Ancient Kingdom he slew without mistake. As for the raging immortal holy nation, was it even an issue for him? After Sima Longyun's interruption, the atmosphere quickly recovered. Many young talents chatted freely. At the same time, some young talents were inquiring about Li Qiye's origins, but unfortunately, no one present knew him. Meanwhile, as the time for the Dharma preaching drew closer, more and more young talents rushed to attend. By the time night fell, the bustling atmosphere adorned the beautiful back garden. Xianxia was busy, receiving young talents from various sects and powerful nations of the Eastern 100 cities. She arranged everything herself and did not let Xiao share the burden. She was also securing an opportunity for her younger brother, as it was not easy for a brother and the treasured Cloud Princess to spend time together. Xiao and the treasured Cloud Princess were getting along very well. They were in a completely quiet area, by the lake and outside the pavilion, which could be described as under the flowers and the moon, utterly romantic. Their cheerful laughter occasionally drifted over. It was clear that they were conversing very happily. Haha. Big brother Li, truthfully, that little girl from the Qi family isn't bad. Xikong Toqian poured wine for Li Qiye and said. Li Qiye glanced at him and said, "How old are you?" "About 500, I suppose. But in front of big brother, I'm still a junior brother." Xikong Toqian immediately said with a grin. Li Qiye waved his hand and said, "All right, stop sucking up. What do you want?" "Nothing, actually." Xikong Toqian said with a smile, "Actually, that Qi kid is good. Although I did trick him out of some medicinal herbs, I genuinely want to be friends with him. That kid is a decent person. I can tell that he has been intentionally trying to match you with that little girl from the Qi family. It can be described as painstaking effort. Although that little girl from the Qi family is a bit arrogant, she's just a young girl who hasn't seen much of the world. She's indeed a little lacking. However, big brother is decent to that Qi kid. If big brother doesn't mind the little girl having eyes that cannot see Mount Tai, and keeps her by your side as a maidservant, it wouldn't be bad. This would be a great fortune for her. Anyway, big brother already has 2 peerless beauties by your side, one more wouldn't hurt." Xikong Toqian eagerly tried to incite Li Qiye. Compared to the Qi siblings, Xikong Toqian's gaze was much more seasoned. The Qi siblings were young and had not seen much of the world. Xikong Toqian was different, he had witnessed everything and knew when to advance and when to retreat. Knowing how to weigh the pros and cons. I won't casually take people by my side. Those who stay by my side must, at the very least, be people worth my significant cultivation. Li Qiye glanced at Xikong Toqian and said, "If you stay to serve me, I might consider it." Xikong Toqian's personality reminded him of Nan Huiran. That kid, Nan Huiran, was driven by money, was good at trickery, and understood how to read people, but he lacked the thief-like quality that Xikong Toqian possessed. In fact, with Nan Huiran's talent, by Li Qiye's standards, he wasn't yet worthy of significant cultivation. However, Nan Huiran was the first person to pledge allegiance to him when he first arrived at the Cleansing Incense Ancient Sect. It was because of this loyalty that Li Qiye had never treated him badly, even securing him an emperor's art. "As long as you follow me diligently, you will be the second human king of the heavenly secret valley in the future." These words immediately shook Xikong Toqian's heart. He naturally knew what his Heavenly Secret Valley's human ancestor represented. Never mind their Heavenly Secret Valley, even looking across the mortal Emperor world, their Heavenly Secret Valley's human ancestor could rank among the famous. It was just a pity that their human ancestor's lifespan was nearing its end, and their Heavenly Secret Valley might not be able to keep him. Did Big Brother meet our human ancestor? Sikong Toqian couldn't help but ask. Li Qiye smiled, drank a cup, and said nothing. Sikong Toqian was momentarily stunned, even forgetting to pour wine. The successor of the Tiger Roar sect, Hu Yu, has arrived. Just then, a minor commotion arose in the venue. Many young talents present stood up, welcoming the person who entered through the door. At this moment, a young man walked in. This young man had a tiger forehead and tiger eyes, his aura was overpowering. As soon as he entered, a ferocious beast's aura, like a tide, swept across the entire venue. His pair of tiger eyes shone coldly. Anyone he glanced at felt as if they were being stared at by a fierce beast, feeling particularly uneasy and instinctively experiencing a sense of danger. As soon as this young man entered, Qi Xiaodia's expression changed. Hu Yu, the successor of the Tiger Roar sect. It was rumored that the Treasured Cloud Princess was most likely to be married to this person by the Treasured Cloud clan. This was her younger brother's biggest and most dangerous love rival. Although Qi Xiaodia harbored hostility towards Hu Yu, as the host, she still personally went to welcome him. Brother Hu Yu, long time no see. At this time, many young talents present stood up, cupped their fists, and greeted him. Regardless of how arrogant the young talents were, they did not dare to be overly presumptuous. Even Sima Longyun, who hailed from the raging immortal holy nation, stood up to greet him. The Tiger Roar sect was a very powerful inheritance in the eastern 100 cities. Legend says that the founder of the Tiger Roar sect was a tiger demon who became a god, proclaiming himself a true god and leaving behind an astonishing foundation for the Tiger Roar sect. Compared to the raging immortal holy nation, the Tiger Roar sect might not necessarily be stronger, but even Sima Longyun, as arrogant as he was, did not dare to be overly insolent toward Hu Yu. Hu Yu was a renowned figure among the younger generation in the eastern 100 cities. Some had even ranked the younger generation of the eastern 100 cities, and Hu Yu could definitely be placed in the top 5. It could even be said that Hu Yu was not much inferior to Sima Longyun's senior brother, Ba Xia, the first prince of the raging immortal holy nation. Precisely because of this, Sima Longyun, who was always arrogant despite his origin from the raging immortal holy nation, still showed Hu Yu some respect. After Hu Yu entered, Li Qiye narrowed his eyes. As Qi Xiaodao had mentioned, the Treasured Cloud Princess was very likely to be married to Hu Yu, and even the Treasured Cloud clan was happy to see this marriage alliance succeed. This was Qi Xiaodao's greatest love rival. Since Li Qiye had promised Qi Xiaodao to resolve this matter, he certainly would not give Hu Yu a chance. This kid is also not simple. Seeing Li Qiye narrow his eyes and look at Hu Yu, Sikong Toqian immediately said, he is the successor of the Tiger Roar sect, already a 5-star true person. Legend says that the bloodline of their tiger god founder flows in his veins. A 5-star true person. For the younger generation, to be a 5-star true person was indeed extraordinary, even stunningly talented. It was no wonder outsiders said the bloodline of the tiger god founder flowed in him. Cultivators in the star-catching realm were referred to as true persons. This was a very difficult threshold to cross in the cultivation process. Hu Yu, at such a young age, was already a 5-star true person. His achievements and talent were indeed very strong, and he might not necessarily be weaker than the successors of those emperor lineage immortal gates. After Hu Yu entered, he nodded and greeted everyone. His tiger eyes scanned the area, searching for something. When he saw Qi Xiaodao and the Treasured Cloud Princess, his eyes immediately turned cold, and he walked over. He's heading toward the Qi Kid. This fellow is absolutely the Qi Kid's strongest love rival. That Qi Kid's cultivation is still lacking, he can't compete with this guy. Seeing Hu Yu walking toward Qi Xiaodao's group, Sikong Toqian murmured, I hope he's sensible enough not to touch my junior brother, otherwise, I'll break his bones. Li Qiye drained his cup and slowly stood up. He had promised Qi Xiaodao to support him in his pursuit of the treasured Cloud Princess as much as possible, so he would not sit idly by. Xikong Toqian immediately followed, feeling excited. There was going to be a good show this time. He had inquired about Li Qiye's deeds in the Central Great Territory. This was a fierce person who dared to slay ancient kingdom powerhouses and butcher the sacred Heaven Church. If Hu Yu truly didn't know how to advance or retreat, he would likely die a very miserable death. Qi Xiaodao, who was chatting and laughing with the treasured Cloud Princess, saw Hu Yu walking toward them. His heart couldn't help but tremble. He took a deep breath, composed himself, and stood up, his fighting spirit blazing, not backing down at all. Today, he must strive for his own opportunity. The treasured Cloud Princess was originally laughing and talking with Qi Xiaodao. Seeing Hu Yu, her expression couldn't help but change. Her smile immediately cooled down. Hu Yu was the person she was least willing to see, yet she was helpless concerning this marriage. When Qi Xiaodie saw Hu Yu walking toward her younger brother, her face also instantly changed. She knew something major was about to happen and couldn't help but worry. She was well aware that her younger brother was far from being Hu Yu's match. For a moment, the atmosphere in the entire venue began to grow heavy. Many people noticed the anomaly and turned to look over. The quiet area was instantly disrupted. "Brother Qi, thank you for hosting Treasured Cloud for me. Brother Qi is a busy person, so I'll accompany Treasured Cloud now." Hu Yu walked up and said to Qi Xiaodao. His opening words were still considered polite. As soon as Hu Yu spoke, Qi Xiaodao couldn't help but hold his breath. He took a deep breath, composed himself, and slowly said, "Brother Hu is too kind. Princess Treasured Cloud is a guest, and I am simply doing my utmost as a host." Hu Yu chuckled, saying, "The Dharma preaching is about to begin. Brother Qi is busy and can't be distracted, so I'll accompany Treasured Cloud now. It's also a good time to discuss the marriage between our two families." Hu Yu's words immediately made Qi Xiaodao's expression change drastically. As for the Treasured Cloud Princess, her face also darkened, but she couldn't say much. Qi Xiaodie couldn't help but clench her fists. At this moment, she also wanted to help her younger brother, but it was completely inappropriate for her to step in now. "You must be Hu Yu." Just as Qi Xiaodao was caught between a rock and a hard place, Li Qiye's indifferent voice rang out. He slowly walked over. Hu Yu's gaze swept over, his tiger eyes turning cold. He slowly said, "Regardless of who you are, I have no interest in exchanging pleasantries at this time." After speaking, his aura was overbearing. "Pleasantries?" Li Qiye chuckled leisurely and said, "You overestimate yourself. I'm not here to exchange pleasantries with you, either." Hu Yu immediately turned around, his tiger eyes blazing with cold light, directly pressing upon Li Qiye. His murderous aura was aggressive, like a fierce beast, like a hungry tiger, eyeing its prey, causing anyone who saw it to feel fear. "No matter who you are, if you're sensible, get lost right now. Otherwise, I don't mind getting my hands stained with fresh blood before the assembly begins." Hu Yu's killing intent was instantly palpable, causing many people present to shiver involuntarily. Li Qiye slightly raised his eyelids and said, "A 5-star true person, right? Very well. Today, I'll reluctantly make a move to break the bones of a 5-star true person." As soon as Li Qiye said this, there was an uproar. Countless young talents present looked at each other in dismay. A prince said, "This kid is too crazy. Doesn't he know who he's provoking?" For a moment, everyone present thought Li Qiye didn't know how to live or die. Hu Yu was absolutely a major figure in the Eastern 100 cities, and with the strength of a 5-star true person, he was absolutely unchallenged among the younger generation. Insolent brat who doesn't know how to live or die. At this moment, Sima Longyun instantly stood up and shouted angrily, "Someone as insignificant as you is not qualified for Brother Hu to make a move. I alone can slaughter an insolent brat like you. Get lost." Li Qiye didn't even raise an eyelid. He clenched his hand into a fist, turning it into an axe, and chopped down in a backhand motion. As his hand chopped out, the hell suppressing god physique immediately erupted. Under the axe-like fist, thunder and lightning flashed, and space shattered. The power of this single punch was as heavy as the earth, crushing 10,000 territories. The minor achievement of the immortal physique was irresistible. Open. Sima Longyun's face changed drastically. He roared loudly and deployed a shield. His blood energy surged like a flood, and the treasured shield met Li Qiye's punch head-on, full of confidence. With a bang, the punch heavily struck the treasured shield. Dong, dong, dong. Sima Longyun retreated continuously, leaving one deep pit after another in the ground where he stepped. Following a crack, the treasured shield in his hand instantly shattered into several pieces, the fragments falling to the ground. In an instant, the entire venue fell silent. The hearts of all the young talents present were shaken. Li Qiye's casual punch shattered the treasured shield. This was like a giant axe, splitting into the hearts of the crowd. What kind of formidable physical body was this? Insolent brat, you don't even know who you've provoked. Sima Longyun's face was extremely ugly. He roared, and his blood energy immediately surged. In an instant, the vigorous essence surrounding him transformed into a giant python ox. At this moment, Sima Longyun's entire body was covered in golden light, as if he was wearing golden divine armor. A huge python ox appeared in front of Sima Longyun. The entire python ox was golden and shining, as if made of pure gold. Moo! A roar like an ox bellowing rang out. Immediately, the python ox's aura was like massive waves crashing against the sky. The python ox surged forward with immense force. In that instant, it was as if 10,000 oxen were stampeding, a flood breaking the banks. Golden changed color. Innate physique, great achievement. Someone gasped, murmuring. Merely a minor technique. At this moment, Li Qiye finally turned around. He didn't even raise an eyelid, fundamentally not taking Sima Longyun seriously. In this instant, Li Qiye's blood energy was like a vast ocean, and his fate palace appeared. A Kuanpeng soared through the sky, and Emperor's might crashed like massive waves. Feeling the Emperor's might, everyone present's expressions changed drastically. Someone choked out, Emperor's art. Hearing Emperor's art, even Sima Longyun's face changed. He shouted angrily. Kill! Rumble, rumble, rumble. In an instant, the golden python ox galloped fiercely. Its forehoofs trampled the heaven and earth. Its iron hooves struck fast as lightning, crushing mountains and rivers. Get lost. The golden python ox charged fiercely, its iron hooves striking with the force of 10 million tons. Li Qiye didn't even flicker an eyelid. He roared. His arm was like a celestial cudgel, instantly striking down. The hell-suppressing god physique was invincible. His physical body moved, and the crushing force of hundreds of millions of tons immediately bore down. With a loud boom, the charging golden python ox was immediately smashed away by Li Qiye. Sima Longyun was completely knocked flying, spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood. Boom, boom, boom. A series of explosions sounded. Sima Longyun crashed through multiple palace structures. When he finally struggled up from the broken bricks and tiles, he was utterly disheveled. This scene profoundly shocked everyone. Sima Longyun, a marquis with a great achievement golden python ox physique, was smashed away by the opponent with a single strike. The opponent was calm and relaxed, clearly not considering him a match. At this moment, Qi Xiaodia's heart trembled, and her young soul was deeply shaken, unable to calm down for a long time. She had always thought Li Qiye was merely proficient in the Tao of medicine. Looking at his cultivation, she didn't feel he was much stronger than herself. However, he was silent until he struck. And his strike was astonishing. Even Qi Xiaodao cried out in alarm, gasping in shock at Li Qiye's overbearing strength. As for everyone else present, there was no need to mention their shock. Even Hu Yu's face darkened, his tiger eyes blazing with cold light, revealing a terrifying killing intent. At this time, Li Qiye couldn't be bothered to look at Sima Longyun again. He turned around, revealing a calm smile, and said to Qi Xiaodao, "I am always ruthless when slaying dragons and tigers. Xiaodao, quickly take Miss Bao into the hall, lest the fresh blood spatters." Qi Xiaodao immediately understood Li Qiye's intention. He immediately invited the treasured cloud princess to the side, leaving the battlefield. This was also to avoid embarrassing her. Huyu immediately darkened his face. When he tried to step forward, Li Qiye blocked his path. Li Qiye slowly rubbed his hands together, saying naturally and unhurriedly, "Someone just said he wanted to stain his hands with my fresh blood. It seems if I don't slay a dragon and butcher a tiger, I'll be letting myself down." At this moment, the entire venue was completely silent. Everyone gasped. If this were before, Li Qiye's words would have made people laugh at his overestimation of his own abilities. However, at this moment, everyone present felt a chill in their hearts. They understood that this was not a kind person. Huyu's tiger eyes flickered with cold light, and his killing intent was bone-chilling. He said, "Regardless of who you are, the Eastern 100 Cities is not a place for you to act presumptuously. If you are courting death, I will grant your wish. I will personally tear your bones apart. Act presumptuously." Li Qiye chuckled slowly and said, "There are truly very few places in the 9 heavens and 10 lands where I dare not act presumptuously. As for you saying you'll tear my bones apart, it's like that old man from the southern Heaven Grand State, the great divine demon, some time ago. Ah, I almost forgot. I accidentally crushed him into mincemeat. I wonder if your bones are harder than his." As soon as Li Qiye said this, everyone present couldn't help but hold their breath. Even though the Eastern 100 Cities was still very behind in news from the Central Great Territory, they had heard of the Southern Heaven Grand State. Who didn't know that the Southern Heaven Grand State was absolutely stronger than the Tiger Roar sect, not weaker? Humph. Huyu coldly snorted. He immediately took a step forward. In this instant, a tiger's roar echoed. He was like the king of 10,000 beasts, commanding all the ferocious beasts in the world. The wild, primordial beast aura surged like crashing waves, immediately causing many people present to retreat hurriedly. Everyone has met here to discuss the profound mysteries of the Great Tao. Why must there be mutual slaughter? At this moment, a pleasant sound, like a celestial melody, rang out. As this voice descended, it immediately dispelled the killing aura in the venue. In this instant, the atmosphere in the entire venue became tranquil, as if the earth was recovering in spring, like a cool breeze meeting the scorching heat, making everyone's body feel comfortable and their spirits refreshed. Tropical drink. This voice descended. Yet it made people clear away their gloom and the viciousness in their hearts. It seemed this voice was a celestial melody from the 9 heavens. Even an utterly murderous butcher, upon hearing this voice, couldn't help but become calm and composed. Hearing this voice, Li Qiye nodded slightly. This girl had cultivated that supreme art to the minor achievement stage. Fairy Maiden May. At this moment, everyone forgot the recent conflict. They all turned around, following the sound. A woman approached, treading upon the moonlight. The woman was clad in snow-white robes, seemingly draped in the moon as she arrived. The woman was ethereal and peerless, like a celestial maiden descending to the mortal world, like a goddess under the moonlight. The woman walking on the moon was beyond description in words. Her aura was transcendental and refined, seemingly untouched by the mortal world, with an unparalleled grace, like an immortal entering the mundane. She was not too thin if she were a fraction thinner, and not too plump if she were a fraction plumper. Regardless of her appearance or figure, she could be called exquisite. As the woman approached, treading on the moonlight, celestial phenomena appeared. A pure, refreshing breeze wafted forth, making people feel as if a traveler in a parched desert had suddenly encountered sweet spring water. 100 flowers blossomed, green shoots and leaves sprouted, and ice and snow melted, flowing gently. When such celestial phenomena appeared, it made people forget the troubles of the mortal world, forget the grievances and conflicts. Even a butcher with surging, ferocious killing intent felt peace and tranquility in their heart at this moment. Such an atmosphere truly easily influenced people. Even who wanted to settle the score with Li Qiye, had his anger dissipated. He only gave Li Qiye a cold snort, his gaze fixed on the woman, lingering for a long time. Fairy Maiden May. Seeing the woman walking on the moon, countless people were instantly captivated. Someone murmured. Even those of noble birth, golden branch, and jade leaf, couldn't help but feel inferior. Xianxia, in both cultivation and appearance, was a proud daughter of heaven. She was not a person who belittled herself, yet upon seeing Mei Suyao, she couldn't help but sigh, feeling that she fell short. Today, all virtuous ones are present, gathered to discuss the profound mysteries of the great Tao. Mei Suyao's arrival, untouched by the mortal world, and a single sentence from her, resolved the conflict on the scene. This was truly a terrifying woman. Mei Suyao sat down. Everyone present also sat down, gathering their focus and spirit. Their expression solemn, listening attentively. For all cultivators, being able to listen to Mei Suyao's Dharma preaching was a great opportunity. Quite a few people had gained insight after listening to her sermon. Suyao shall expose my imperfections and first speak a passage. If there are any improprieties, I hope you will offer corrections. Mei Suyao sat upright, with the posture of a celestial maiden, peerless and unique. The origin of the Tao is the original heart, and it is also the origin of heaven and earth, the root of all things. Mei Suyao began her sermon. Her voice was melodious, falling into everyone's ears like the sound of the Dharma wheel, long unforgettable. Mei Suyao began her sermon. The content was profound, yet the language was simple and easy to understand, moving from simplicity to complexity, and from complexity back to simplicity. When she spoke of the wonderful applications, celestial phenomena appeared, heavenly flowers fell in disorder, golden springs surged from the earth, as if an immortal king was imparting the Tao, all sages were shouting, and Saint Buddhas were chanting virtues. For a moment, countless people present were listening in rapt ecstasy. Many in the younger generation, hearing Mei Suyao's discussion of the Tao, suddenly realized and understood the subtle profundities of the great Tao that they had previously failed to grasp. For a time, many young people felt their spirits wander in the boundless void. Even a figure like Hu Yu listened in a daze, lost in thought. Li Qiye sat in his secluded corner, carefully listening to a passage of Mei Suyao's scripture. He also nodded slightly. At such a young age, to grasp such profound principles was indeed extraordinary. The Long River School could cultivate a successor like this, it was truly remarkable. That girl was worthy of being born with an immortal bone, possessing the glabella immortal bone, such peerless advantage was incomparable to other geniuses. With the glabella immortal bone, once one possessed such supreme innate talent, all laws were simplified, and all Taos were commonplace. It was difficult for a person with this kind of talent not to defy the heavens. After listening to one passage, Li Qiye silently stood up and drifted away. He stopped listening and instead proceeded deeper into the imperial palace, fully appreciating the palace's scenery. For Li Qiye, this entry into the imperial palace was not to hear Mei Suyao's sermon but to support Qi Xiaodao. Now that he had secured an opportunity for Qi Xiaodao, and after listening to one passage of the scripture, he no longer had much interest. Therefore, he simply walked under the cover of night, carefully appreciating the beautiful scenery in the imperial palace and fully enjoying the hazy moonlight. For Li Qiye, it was not that Mei Suyao's sermon was poor, nor that her understanding of the Tao was flawed. In fact, Li Qiye was quite complimentary of Mei Suyao's understanding of the Tao. However, for Li Qiye, there was no need to keep listening. In this aspect, he had traveled much further than Mei Suyao. Even without the divine abilities that Mei Suyao possessed, he could still make heavenly flowers fall and celestial phenomena appear in his preaching. He had once guided immortal emperors, elucidated doubts for true gods, and was once hailed as the immortal emperor's Tao master. His understanding of the great Tao was not something a young person like Mei Suyao could compare with. Li Qiye walked under the moonlight, admiring the scenery, forgetting the time. In fact, in the distant past, he had also been here. He had protected the Qi family for 3 generations. He was still very familiar with this area. It was just that, compared to the prosperity of those years, the lion's roar country had declined today, far from having the foundation and resources of the past. After all, having gone through the vicissitudes of 10 million years, the descendants of the Qi family had almost exhausted the foundation left by their ancestors, with little remaining. Walking under the moonlight, Li Qiye traversed the imperial palace. He was planning to leave the lion's roar country. For him, the matters here were more or less settled. The only thing left was the treasure casket left by the immortal butcher teacher king, which he had yet to personally hand over to Qi Xiaodao's grandfather. Brother Li certainly has an elegant interest. As Li Qiye stood in the imperial city, by the boundless pond, admiring the moonlight, a natural, very pleasant voice rang out, like a celestial melody. Without turning around, Li Qiye knew who had arrived. Mei Suyao walked on the moon, like a celestial maiden under the moon. Anyone who witnessed her grace would be utterly captivated. Li Qiye continued to silently admire the scenery before him, not turning around. He said calmly, "The Long River School is well informed. It truly lives up to its name as the #1 sect in the Eastern 100 cities. Brother Li is already renowned throughout the world. One can learn of you without needing to inquire." Mei Suyao walked on the moon and stood side by side with Li Qiye. At this time, Mei Suyao was veiled by the moon and mist, ethereal and transcendent. Being beside Li Qiye, a captivating fragrance lingered, and mist surrounded her, making one's whole body feel comfortable. The sermon was not bad. At this moment, Li Qiye slowly looked at Mei Suyao and nodded. This was not Li Qiye being rude or arrogant, this was simply his normal mindset and attitude. Zhen Tianhai City's Zhen Tian goddess Zi Chui Ning, regardless of her origin or cultivation, might not be inferior to Mei Suyao. Even so, she was nothing in his eyes. Mei Suyao smiled, captivating all beings, her beauty making flowers blush. She said, "If the sermon was not bad, Brother Li would not have left in the middle. If there were shortcomings, I ask Brother Li to offer corrections." Mei Suyao was an extraordinary figure, captivating all beings and renowned throughout the Eastern 100 cities. Countless people admired and were fascinated by her. This was not only because of her peerless beauty, but more importantly, she was an unconventional person. Her cultivation was unfathomable, her comprehension of the great Tao was extremely deep. And she was willing to preach the Dharma and resolve doubts about the Tao for those people while traveling in the Eastern 100 cities. If an outsider heard this, they absolutely would not believe it. In the Eastern 100 cities, no matter how brilliantly talented a genius was, they would not dare to claim to correct Mei Suyao's understanding of the Tao. In the aspect of comprehending the profound mysteries of the great Tao, Mei Suyao could absolutely be called an authority. Even figures of the older generation felt inferior. "Actually, you spoke very well. You don't need to mind me. I just wanted to see the scenery." Li Qiye smiled. Mei Suyao gently shook her hand. Her graceful demeanor captivated all beings. She said, seeing Brother Li listening to the sermon, Suyao knew that Brother Li harbors a greater scripture in his heart. Why not speak it? Li Qiye gently shook his head, saying nothing, continuing to look at the scenery. Does Brother Li disdain to discuss scripture with me? Brother Li's Tao principles are lofty and profound. Suyao is eager to listen. Mei Suyao spoke again. This time, as soon as she spoke, her mouth emitted the true words. The great Tao harmonized, and celestial energy surged, like snow melting in spring, and like a cool breeze in a hot summer. It made one's entire body feel comfortable, as if stepping into an immortal gate, as if taking charge of the immortal Tao, an indescribable, subtly profound feeling, wonderful beyond description. Anyone standing beside Mei Suyao at this moment would be affected by this aura. Feeling light and airy, with an indescribable sense of affinity. This was the feeling of drawing close to the great Tao, placing one another within the great Tao, instantly closing the distance between them. At this moment, Li Qiye slowly turned his head, looked at the peerless Mei Suyao before him, and calmly said, "Girl, don't use the Alaya heavenly fragrance Tao on me. Be careful. Or I'll spank your bottom. This was an extremely coarse statement. Mei Suyao was the celestial maiden in the hearts of countless people. Probably no one would dare to speak such words to her. How dare you? Just then, a cold shout rang out, and an imposing aura swept over. A young man in silver armor with a spear on his back approached, treading on the moonlight, and shouted in a cold voice. This was the heavenly music saint child who wanted to follow Mei Suyao. It seemed wherever Mei Suyao went, he would follow. Li Qiye didn't even raise an eyelid, nor did he look at the heavenly music saint child. He said casually, "Tell your sidekick not to disturb me, otherwise, I won't just punish him, I'll deal with you too." You. The heavenly music saint child's face instantly changed drastically. He gripped his long spear, killing intent emerging instantly. His eyes pierced the air, immediately locking onto Li Qiye. "Saint child, may I speak with Brother Li?" Privately. Mei Suyao spoke. Untouched by the mortal world, she was still peerless, captivating all. Even though the heavenly music saint child was seething with anger, upon hearing her melodious voice, his rage dissipated. He glared fiercely at Li Qiye, turned around, and left. Brother Li has a plan. The heavenly music saint child left. Mei Suyao's voice was like celestial music, descending from the heavens, sounding particularly pleasant. Even the most angered person would have their fire extinguished by more than half. Li Qiye couldn't even be bothered to glance at her. He said, "Girl, your future is boundless, but don't be too obsessed with being a saintess or celestial maiden. The Alaya heavenly fragrance Tao left by the water-gathering immortal emperor was not meant for preaching the Dharma, but rather for enlightening all beings. The great Tao is grand. Stand alone, and tread upon the boundless. This is what your Alaya heavenly fragrance Tao should seek. You are wasting your talent. The Glabella immortal bone combined with the Alaya heavenly fragrance Tao is enough for you to have a chance to contend for the heavens will in the future. Enlightening all beings is not something you should be doing. Furthermore, you cannot enlighten me. Today, even if your founder, the water-gathering immortal emperor, came in person, her Alaya heavenly fragrance Tao might not be able to enlighten me. Don't use such minor tricks in front of me again, or else I will spank your bottom in front of the whole world." After saying that, Li Qiye walked away windingly. Mei Suyao looked at Li Qiye's departing back. Her uniquely beautiful eyes became incredibly profound. She tilted her head, her grace captivating all beings. Even the breeze that was stirred up softened. When Li Qiye returned to the back garden, the grand assembly had dispersed, and all the talented heroes had left. "Where did you go?" As soon as Xiaodia saw Li Qiye, she quickly said, "I was looking all over for you." Li Qiye looked at her and asked, "Where is Xiaodao?" "He went to escort Princess Baosheng back." Xiaodia said, "My father wants to meet you. I wonder what your intention is." "Very well, I shall meet him then." Li Qiye thought for a moment. If Xiaodia's father was trustworthy, he would hand over the inherited treasure casket of the immortal butcher teacher king to him. Hearing this, Xiaodia couldn't help but smile wryly in her heart. Normally, people who wanted to meet her father would not get the chance, yet the other party was reluctantly agreeing to meet. At this moment, Xiaodia said nothing more. She simply couldn't see through Li Qiye. Guided by Xiaodia, Li Qiye met the Lion's Roar sovereign in the imperial palace. The Lion's Roar sovereign was a middle-aged man who looked about 50, with a bright demeanor. Xiaodao greatly resembled his father. The title of a ruler of a nation, who is also a cultivator, holds a specific meaning. They are usually referred to as the sovereign, Hong Chu, and some are called human emperor, Nan Hong, or demon emperor, Yu Hong. For example, the Wheel Sun Demon Emperor and the Treasured Saint Human Emperor are referred to as Demon Emperor and Human Emperor. Those who can be called Human Emperor or Demon Emperor are extraordinary rulers, such as the Wheel Sun Demon Emperor and the Treasured Saint Human Emperor, who were the two most brilliant and stunning talents of the previous generation in the Central Great Territory. A sovereign like the Azure Profound Ancient Kingdom's ruler is also called the Human Emperor. That is because the Azure Profound Ancient Kingdom is an ancient kingdom. and absolutely has the qualifications to be called the human emperor. Therefore, the majority of powerful nation rulers refer to themselves as sovereign, not daring to casually call themselves human emperor or demon emperor. The monarch of the Lion's Roar country had even more reason to be so. The Lion's Roar country was merely a small nation. He dared not call himself human emperor, and could only refer to himself as sovereign. The majority of powerful nation sovereigns are at the true person or ancient saint level. Of course, the sovereigns of very minor nations might only be at the marquis level. As for human emperors, demon emperors, or the rulers of ancient kingdoms, their levels vary. They could be saint venerables, or even saint emperors. Fellow Taoist helped my son change his fate. This monarch is eternally grateful. Fellow Taoist is a parent reborn to my son. Upon meeting Li Qiye, the Lion's Roar country sovereign did not dare to be disrespectful and cupped his hands toward Li Qiye. Li Qiye accepted the great reverence of the Lion's Roar sovereign. This was a matter of course for him. The Lion's Roar sovereign quickly invited him to sit. The Lion's Roar sovereign was a man of considerable cultivation and a wise ruler. He spent the vast majority of his time in the imperial city, especially during the recent sensitive period. He dared not leave the imperial city. Even so, a lingering sadness was visible between the Lion's Roar sovereign's brows. May I know if the Lion's Roar Saint Emperor can emerge from seclusion? After taking his seat, Li Qiye went straight to the point and asked. Li Qiye immediately asked about his father, which surprised the Lion's Roar sovereign. He couldn't help but say, "May I know what fellow Taoist wishes to see my esteemed father about?" Li Qiye shook his head, offering no explanation. Seeing Li Qiye remain silent, the Lion's Roar sovereign did not press. He pondered for a moment and said, "To be frank with fellow Taoist, my esteemed father is in isolated seclusion. Even I cannot see him. If fellow Taoist wishes to see my esteemed father, I'm afraid you must wait until he emerges from seclusion." Li Qiye pondered inwardly for a moment and did not hand over the treasure casket left by the immortal butcher teacher king. This concerned the inheritance of the immortal butcher teacher king. He could not easily hand it over to the Lion's Roar sovereign like this. If his father, who was the true descendant of the immortal butcher teacher king, could not emerge from seclusion, he would reconsider entrusting the casket to him later. While Li Qiye was thinking about the treasure casket left by the immortal butcher teacher king, the Lion's Roar sovereign also pondered, hesitating to speak. "Sovereign, if you have something to say, please say it. We don't need to beat around the bush," Li Qiye said, seeing the Lion's Roar sovereign hesitate. The Lion's Roar sovereign gave a dry laugh. He hesitated for a moment and finally said, "I heard that fellow Taoist hails from the cleansing incense ancient sect, which does not confer the title of marquis or king. Our Lion's Roar school is but a small nation. I wonder if we have the fortune to confer upon fellow Taoist the title of marquis. Conferring the title of marquis or king varies among nations. Some nations are extremely particular, even strict, especially ancient kingdoms, which are even more so. Generally speaking, cultivators conferred the title of marquis or king must be experts at the profound fate realm. Hence, experts of this realm are also called marquis/king by the world. However, not everyone conferred the title of marquis or king is necessarily a profound fate realm expert. Some minor nations that cannot retain great figures will lower the conditions for conferring the title of marquis or king. However, for the vast majority of nations, the first condition for conferring the title of marquis is the profound fate realm. For a small and weak nation like the Lion's Roar country, retaining talent is not so easy. Therefore, they lowered the condition for conferring the title of king, only daring to confer the title of marquis. Although it is only one word difference, the intention is actually quite significant, not daring to casually overstep tradition. Regarding the Lion's Roar sovereign's words, Li Qiye smiled. The Lion's Roar sovereign quickly added, "Although fellow Taoist will be conferred the title of marquis in our Lion's Roar country, you can still be conferred the title of marquis or king in other countries. Furthermore, fellow Taoist is not required to submit allegiance to our country, nor is the ritual of a subject toward a monarch required. We only hope that in the future, during a national crisis, fellow Taoist can lend assistance. If fellow Taoist is willing, you may choose any territory within our Lion's Roar country. The conditions offered by the Lion's Roar sovereign were generous enough, virtually without any restrictions. This was truly an unexpected boon. In fact, the Lion's Roar sovereign truly wanted to retain Li Qiye. Li Qiye's cultivation strength was one thing, but a pharmacist who could change fate, even if not the legendary mythic pharmacist, was already extremely heaven-defying. If the world knew of such a talent, let alone his Lion's Roar country, even the great sects and powerful nations across the land would vie for him. This was absolutely a rare talent. Li Qiye narrowed his eyes for a moment, thought about it, and then said, I remember your Lion's Roar country once had a territory called the Ancestral God Prefecture. Is it still there? Yes. Yes, that is a fiefdom in the north of my Lion's Roar country. Hearing Li Qiye ask, the Lion's Roar sovereign quickly replied. Li Qiye smiled and said, in that case, I shall accept the title of Marquis. Land is not an issue for me. I shall temporarily reside in the Ancestral God Prefecture. Just as you said, if you face a national crisis in the future, I will lend you a hand. Li Qiye's request stunned the Lion's Roar sovereign for a moment. Even Qi Xiaodian was momentarily stunned. If Li Qiye was willing to accept the title, they all assumed Li Qiye would choose the most fertile mountains and rivers, rich with treasures and spiritual herbs in the Lion's Roar country, as his fiefdom. However, they never expected Li Qiye to choose the Ancestral God Prefecture. The Ancestral God Prefecture was located at the northern end of the Lion's Roar country. It could be described as remote and sparsely populated, certainly not a fertile region or a precious land. Yet, Li Qiye had inexplicably chosen this barren land, which left the Lion's Roar sovereign and Qi Xiaodian somewhat bewildered. Good, absolutely no problem, as long as fellow Taoist desires it. When the Lion's Roar sovereign regained his senses, he immediately nodded. This was truly an unexpected boon. Li Qiye said naturally. The Ancestral God Prefecture is desolate. I lack a servant by my side. How about this, Xiaodian will follow me. Li Qiye's words immediately changed the Lion's Roar sovereign's expression drastically. Although his Lion's Roar country was a small nation, his daughter was the jewel in his palm. No matter what, it was not to the point where his daughter should serve as a maid for someone else. Don't worry, I merely lack someone to run errands. I won't do anything to her. Li Qiye said with a smile. These words made Qi Xiaodian feel an unbearable surge of anger. The statement made her sound like an ugly, repulsive woman. Her heart was filled with fury. Li Qiye saying he wanted her as a maidservant was far less infuriating than that particular phrase. Father, I will go with him. Just as the Lion's Roar sovereign was about to refuse Li Qiye's request, Qi Xiaodian stood up, looked at Li Qiye, and said coldly. This. The Lion's Roar sovereign, on the other hand, hesitated. He looked at Li Qiye. Then at Qi Xiaodian. He was also confused. His daughter was, after all, the jewel in his palm, the golden branch and jade leaf of the Lion's Roar country. He naturally did not want her to serve as a maid for someone. However, now his daughter had agreed. Sima Longyun of the raging immortal holy nation had once sought marriage, and although his daughter hadn't directly opposed it, as her father, he knew his daughter was unwilling. Yet, now she was willing to serve as a maid for Li Qiye, which left him somewhat bewildered. Very well, you decide for yourself. Finally, the Lion's Roar sovereign sighed softly, essentially agreeing to his daughter's decision. Ultimately, Li Qiye accepted the Lion's Roar sovereign's enfeoffment, making the promise in front of the Golden Throne Hall. The Lion's Roar sovereign handed over the official seal symbolizing the authority of the Ancestral God Prefecture to Li Qiye. Li Qiye then became the supreme ruler of the Ancestral God Prefecture. And this piece of land became Li Qiye's private territory. Li Qiye did not delay. The day after his enfeoffment, he set off for the Ancestral God Prefecture, and Qi Xiaodian followed him. The Lion's Roar sovereign was reluctant to see his daughter go. Before they left the city, he even advised his daughter to abandon the idea. But, for some unknown reason, Xiaodia seemed possessed, determined to follow, and in the capacity of a maidservant. In the end, the lion's roar sovereign could only sigh softly and send his daughter and Li Qiye off. Regrettably, Xiaodao could not come to see them off. Xiaodao had to escort the treasured cloud princess back to the treasured cloud clan, serving as her flower-protecting messenger. Li Qiye did not want to disrupt Xiaodao's good fortune, so he did not inform him of the news. However, Xikong Toutian had run off. On the very night after the Dharma preaching assembly, that kid disappeared to who knows where. Even Xiaodia, who hosted the assembly that night, did not notice when Xikong Toutian slipped away. Li Qiye did not care about those things. The opportunity was in Xikong Toutian's hands. Just like Xiaodia, the opportunity was in her hands. If she missed it herself, Li Qiye would not keep it for her. Li Qiye left the imperial city and entered the Lion's Roar country's ancestral god prefecture. However, after entering the ancestral god prefecture, he did not head for the prefectural capital managed by the ancestral god prefecture's lord, but instead traveled northward. "Aren't we going to the prefectural capital?" Xiaodia was slightly surprised, seeing that Li Qiye had no intention of entering the capital. "No, we won't." Li Qiye casually tossed the official seal symbolizing the authority of the ancestral god prefecture to Xiaodia and said, "You can manage the administration of the ancestral god prefecture from now on, or you can let your father manage it. I don't care. I'm only staying for a short period. The enfeoffment is merely because I have a karmic tie with your Qi family." Xiaodia held the official seal. Stunned for a moment. Regaining her composure, she sighed softly in her heart. These words sounded extremely arrogant and contemptuous of others, yet she said nothing more at this point. Finally, Li Qiye brought Xiaodia into a flat river basin. This flat river basin stretched for 1,000 miles. Looking as far as the eye could see, it was utterly vast. Xiaodia followed Li Qiye forward, not knowing where they were going. Although she was the princess of the Lion's Roar country, she knew very little about this region's geography. Eventually, at the end of the river basin, stood a mountain ridge, neither too high nor too low. If one were to pass beyond it and continue forward, there would be continuous majestic mountain ranges, where the peaks undulated and clouds locked the mists, an extremely magnificent landscape. Xiaodia surveyed the area ahead and said, "The undulating mountains ahead should be the territory of the Heavenly Tao Academy." After speaking, she carefully observed the region again and said, "This place seems to be the extreme west of the Heavenly Tao Academy, the western border territory. It's very far from the ancestral grounds and mountain gate of the Heavenly Tao Academy." "That's right. Crossing this mountain range ahead is entering the territory of the Heavenly Tao Academy." Li Qiye looked and nodded. Xiaodia was slightly bewildered. She did not know why Li Qiye had come here. If he wanted to go to the Heavenly Tao Academy, he should have headed east, as the ancestral grounds and mountain gate of the Heavenly Tao Academy were in the far east. Although the area ahead was the territory of the Heavenly Tao Academy, the disciples of the Heavenly Tao Academy would never come to such a western border area. Finally, Li Qiye led Xiaodia up the not too high, not too low mountain ridge ahead. When she climbed the mountain, Xiaodia noticed that there was a desolate temple on the summit, a temple of moderate size. Moreover, this desolate temple had not been inhabited for who knows how many years. It was very dilapidated. Both the walls and the beams had lost their color, and the four sides of the temple were overgrown with dense weeds and occupied by vines, with various small animals like mice and snakes lurking about. When they entered the desolate temple, the inside was covered in a very thick layer of dust and full of spiderwebs. Standing inside the temple, the only things recognizable were two statues. Ancestral God Temple. Standing in the dilapidated, spiderweb-filled temple, Li Qiye couldn't help but sigh with emotion, gently sighing. Xiaodia was also somewhat dazed standing here. She completely failed to understand why Li Qiye had come to this place, ignoring the bustling prefectural capital, only to run to this dilapidated temple. Clean this place up a bit. We'll stay here. I'm afraid we'll be here for some time. After looking around, Li Qiye instructed Xianxia. Xianxia was stunned for a moment. The place was covered in dust and spiderwebs. She had truly never done chores like cleaning before. Such tasks had never required someone of her status, a golden branch and jade leaf, to do them. Xianxia took a deep breath, circulating her blood energy. She flicked her sleeve, sweeping toward the inside of the temple. Immediately, a fierce wind roared, and dust flew everywhere. In an instant, they were both enveloped in dust and soot. Don't be disrespectful to the predecessors. Clean it by hand. Li Qiye casually tossed her a Qianquan pouch and said, there are living necessities inside. Clean this place thoroughly. I'll go out for a while first. Li Qiye left the Qianquan pouch and then turned to leave. Xianxia stood frozen in place. Standing alone in the dilapidated temple, she was speechless for a moment. Xianxia felt extremely wronged standing in the temple. Although the Lion's Roar country was inferior to the great sects and ancient kingdoms, it still possessed accumulated strength, far stronger than ordinary small nations. Xianxia was the princess of the Lion's Roar country, a true golden branch and jade leaf, a proud daughter of heaven. Xianxia was always cherished by others. Today, not only did she follow Li Qiye to this desolate mountain and wilderness as a maidservant, but now she also had to do this strenuous and dirty work. Since childhood, Xianxia had never done such hard and dirty work. Doing it today felt like being a common maid in the mundane world. Xianxia remained silent for a long time. Finally, she picked up Li Qiye's Qianquan pouch and started cleaning. Although Xianxia was an expert at the marquis level, this was the first time she had done such grueling work. It was a huge challenge for her. Sweeping the floor, dusting, pulling weeds. Doing it without using her divine arts or cultivation techniques, Xianxia's movements were comical, unfamiliar, clumsy, and disorderly. Despite this, Xianxia continued in silence. Although she felt immense grievance and bitterness, she forced herself to do this difficult and challenging task. Xianxia was resentful. She didn't know if she was angry with herself or with Li Qiye. In any case, Xianxia would never have done this before. The fact that she was doing such grueling work today was unbelievable to her under normal circumstances. Xianxia endured, suppressing her nature, bitterness, grievance, and dissatisfaction. Finally, Xianxia cleaned the temple thoroughly. After Li Qiye left the ancestral god temple, he walked around, looking up at the undulating mountain range in front of him. The mountain range was like waves, some peaks towering and piercing the clouds, some valleys deep and bottomless. The terrain was perilous and unpredictable. It was a vast and magnificent landscape. Li Qiye slowly walked toward the opposite side. It looked very close when viewed from the ancestral god temple, but upon walking, he realized the mountain range was dozens of miles away. Li Qiye walked slowly and finally reached the opposite side of the ancestral god temple. This was a low mountain ridge, insignificant compared to the continuous, undulating territory behind it. No one would pay attention to it. But on this small mountain ridge stood a small Taoist temple, only 5 rooms in size. The Taoist temple had blue tiles and gray walls. It was unknown how many years ago it was built. The blue tiles had faded to white, thick dust had accumulated, and weeds grew in the gaps between the roof tiles. However, compared to the dilapidated ancestral god temple, this Taoist temple was quite good. At least it showed signs of human habitation. Upon approaching the Taoist temple, one could see a long plaque hanging over the main entrance with 3 characters, Long Life Academy. It was unknown how long the 3 characters had existed. The originally black ink had turned completely white and illegible. The Taoist temple's door was wide open and unlocked. Li Qiye slowly stepped inside. As Li Qiye set foot into the Taoist temple, he heard a snort, a heavy breathing sound like thunder, making the temple tremble. The heavy breathing sounds came from one room in the Taoist temple. Li Qiye walked into the room. An old Taoist priest was lying on the bed. The old Taoist priest was lying on his back. His sleeping posture was less than flattering, arms and legs spread wide, occupying the entire bed. His posture did not resemble a cultivator at all. The old Taoist priest wore a tattered Taoist robe. The robe was greasy, and it was unknown how long it hadn't been washed. The old Taoist priest's hair was messy. Fortunately, there was no foul smell, otherwise, it would have been unbearable. Although the old Taoist priest was unkempt, his face was well-defined, with a lion's nose and a large mouth, giving him a distinguished look. Like someone who ate heartily in all directions. The old Taoist priest was sleeping soundly. Even with Li Qiye's entry, he was still snoring heavily. The sound of his snoring was like thunder, making people wonder if he would wake up even if he were lifted out of the Taoist temple. Li Qiye looked at the sleeping old Taoist priest and said nothing. Li Qiye slowly scanned the Taoist temple, examining every tile and brick as if conducting an archaeological study. Li Qiye touched nothing. He only observed with his eyes. Finally, Li Qiye carefully examined the Taoist temple named Long Life Academy and then gently departed. When Li Qiye returned to the ancestral god temple near midnight, the temple was brightly illuminated. The weeds and vines around it had been pulled out. The temple, inside and out, had been swept clean, and damaged areas had been tidied up. Although the old temple had not been cleaned to the point of being spotless, it looked much better, showing some sign of life, no longer looking decayed and desolate. As Li Qiye walked into the ancestral god temple, he saw Xianxia standing blankly in the main hall. In the middle of the temple, two statues were enshrined, not statues of deities worshipped in the mortal world. Xianxia was staring blankly at one carved statue. She felt the statue before her was very familiar, but she couldn't immediately recall its origin. When Li Qiye returned, Xianxia opened her mouth and asked, "This? What kind of statue is this?" This statue was carved half sideways. Its posture was very strange, seemingly about to kneel yet still standing upright, as if awaiting a title conferment. From any angle, one could not see the statue's eyes. It was clearly carved with eyes, but one simply could not see them. The posture was exceptionally peculiar. Xianxia had wiped both statues very clean. As she looked at them, especially the one with the peculiar posture, she felt she had seen it somewhere before but couldn't recall where. Li Qiye looked at the statue. Instead of answering, he asked Xianxia back, "What do you think?" Li Qiye sighed inwardly. Time was merciless, and that glorious era felt like just yesterday. Xianxia said sullenly, "If I knew, I wouldn't be asking you." Li Qiye burst out laughing. He looked at the statue and slowly said, "This is the 100 Battles Divine Emperor, the ancestor of your Qi family." Xianxia exclaimed in surprise. "Ancestor? My Qi family's ancestor?" Now Xianxia understood why she felt the statue looked so familiar. In the Qi family's ancestral hall, there was a statue enshrined, but it was facing forward. The Qi family rarely returned to worship, but Xianxia had seen it 2 or 3 times. Xianxia asked, "But why is the posture so strange?" Xianxia naturally assumed Li Qiye knew everything. She, as a descendant of the Qi family, ironically did not understand her ancestor as well as an outsider like Li Qiye. Or perhaps, as Li Qiye had said, one must read books. Reading many books leads to greater knowledge. Li Qiye looked at the statue before him, pondering for a long time, then said, "This is the posture your Qi family's ancestor held when he was conferred the title of 100 Battles Divine Emperor." Hearing that title, Xianxia was very moved. 100 Battles Divine Emperor. Xianxia did not know her ancestor had such a title. Shaken, she asked, Was my Qi family's ancestor apotheosized? Consider it so. A legendary existence, considering your ancestor's great contribution, specifically conferred upon him the title of 100 Battles Divine Emperor. It can be said to be one of the most domineering apotheosized titles among the many divine generals of that era. Li Qiye sighed faintly. In that era, your ancestor was the pride of the human race. Xianxia murmured softly. 100 battles Divine Emperor. In this instant, Qi Xiaodia's blood boiled. She felt as if she had witnessed her ancestor sweeping across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, fighting against the gods and a host of demons. How majestic, how overbearing, what divine might and glory that was. In this moment, Qi Xiaodia truly felt the glory and the legendary tale emanating from her ancestor. Qi Xiaodia was immersed in a profound shock, finding it difficult to regain her composure. Qi Xiaodia snapped back to reality and opened her mouth to ask, "How do you know all this?" Qi Xiaodia, a descendant of the Qi family, did not know these matters, yet Li Qiye knew them like the back of his hand. Li Qiye looked at Qi Xiaodia and said, "That's why I told you to read more books. Reading less turns one into a blockhead. A girl with a big chest and no brain is not a good thing." Being spoken to by Li Qiye made Qi Xiaodia both angry and ashamed. She snorted heavily. Qi Xiaodia turned around, her eyes glancing at the other statue. The statue was carved facing forward, a solemn man with a myriad of arms. Each arm was in a different motion, and each hand was different. Some hands held weapons, some held up the sky, and some formed mudras. Qi Xiaodia looked at the statue with a myriad of arms and asked Li Qiye, "Who is this?" One statue was her ancestor, surely the other statue was not an insignificant figure. Li Qiye looked at the statue with a myriad of arms, and after a long time, he spoke. "Myriad form true God." Qi Xiaodia said in surprise. Myriad form true God. Qi Xiaodia had never heard this name. She didn't know such a figure existed. Qi Xiaodia asked, "Is the myriad form true God a subordinate of my ancestor?" "You are wrong." Li Qiye smiled and said, "A divine emperor is not necessarily greater than a true God. There are many ways to address a god, such as all gods, deities, or divine kings. Those called all gods, deities, or divine kings are not necessarily true gods. Divine emperor is better. As for all gods and divine kings, most are false gods, though of course, some were genuinely apotheosized." Li Qiye continued. "Regarding the divine emperor title, not everyone can be conferred it. There are many stipulations. Not just anyone is qualified to confer the title of divine emperor upon others. In the primal savage era, being conferred the title of divine emperor was extremely rare. Even a living immortal emperor would have to look up to such a figure. In the time when emperors existed, if anyone could confer the title of divine emperor upon others, it was only the immortal emperor himself." Qi Xiaodia asked, "Was my ancestor conferred the title by an immortal emperor?" Li Qiye shook his head and said, "No, it was not. Even an immortal emperor might not necessarily be able to confer the title of divine emperor upon others." How numerous were the battle generals of the myriad races in the 9 worlds? According to the legends of the divine spirits, the one who grants the title of divine emperor is a supreme existence who ascended the divine platform, the true God's platform. The person conferred must command the submission of the myriad races' battle generals. When a person is conferred the title of divine emperor, they are already regarded as a true God and accept that title. A divine emperor acknowledged as a true God is a true God, not a false God. What about a true God? Qi Xiaodia asked. Is that a genuine divine spirit? Li Qiye answered. You could say that. One called a true God must at least have half of the true God bloodline flowing in their body. True gods are neither of the human race nor any other race. Qi Xiaodia said in surprise. Does that mean a genuine true God race exists in the world? What kind of race is that? Qi Xiaodia had always thought that divine spirits were mere legends. She had never heard of anyone seeing a genuine divine spirit. Hearing Li Qiye speak, Qi Xiaodia might not have believed him before, but now she found him very credible. Li Qiye did not answer Qi Xiaodia's question. She still couldn't help but ask again. Who conferred the title upon my ancestor? Qi Xiaodia was very curious. If not an immortal emperor, then who? At that time, who was qualified enough to confer a title upon the Qi family's ancestor that surpassed an immortal emperor? Li Qiye glanced at Qi Xiaodia. I am certain it was not an Immortal Emperor. Qi Xiaodia's thoughts could not be hidden from Li Qiye's eyes. He slowly said, "The immortal emperors of that era would not have conferred the title of Divine Emperor upon your ancestor. Do you know what the campaign your ancestor participated in was called?" Qi Xiaodia said in surprise. It seems like a campaign of immortals or something." Qi Xiaodia pondered. She had heard of this legend, but as for the specific details, let alone her, even the oldest person in the Qi family could not say, as records of those ancient events were lost. Li Qiye said, "The immortal slaying campaign, also known as the campaign to slay immortals." Qi Xiaodia asked, "The immortal slaying campaign? Was it to kill immortals in the mortal world? Are there really immortals in the world?" Li Qiye shook his head and said, "No. It was not to slay immortals, but to slay immortal emperors." In an instant, Li Qiye's eyes became profound. In that moment, he seemed to return to that passionate and tragic era. Hearing Li Qiye's words shook Qi Xiaodia. Slay immortal emperors. Qi Xiaodia dared not imagine it. Slaying an immortal emperor, how terrifying. Before an immortal emperor bore the heaven's will and became invincible, there was a possibility of being killed or defeated. But once an immortal emperor bore the heavens' will and achieved invincibility, the immortal emperor stood at the pinnacle for their entire life, peerless and supreme. Yet, in ancient times, there were those who slew immortal emperors. Those who hunted immortal emperors. It was too unbelievable. Qi Xiaodia was utterly shaken, unable to recover for a long time. Qi Xiaodia murmured softly, feeling lost. The immortal slaying campaign, slaying immortal emperors. If this matter were spread, no one would believe it. The Qi family's ancestor once participated in the immortal slaying campaign, involved in a war to butcher immortal emperors. Not only would outsiders not believe such a thing, but Qi Xiaodia herself wouldn't have believed it. But at this moment, she believed that it had happened. Butchering immortal emperors, there was no need to imagine it. Hearing the legend was enough to make one's blood boil and feel immensely excited. After a long while, Qi Xiaodia regained her composure. She took a deep breath and looked at Li Qiye. Qi Xiaodia asked, "What was the end result?" Qi Xiaodia deeply wanted to know the conclusion of this legendary war. But Li Qiye did not answer Qi Xiaodia's question. He looked into the distance, his eyes profound. After a long while, Li Qiye withdrew his gaze. He looked at Qi Xiaodia and said, "You must be tired. Go rest early. In a few days, there will be many things to do." At this time, Qi Xiaodia was covered in dirt, her beautiful face smeared with mud. Qi Xiaodia, after a day of grueling labor, was nearly a calico cat. Hearing Li Qiye's words, Qi Xiaodia snapped back. Smelling the unpleasant odor on her body, she was both annoyed and uncomfortable and quickly ran off to wash. After Qi Xiaodia left, Li Qiye looked at the statue of the Qi family's ancestor and slowly said, "In the past, you were loyal and devoted, protecting the carriage even unto death. I once granted your descendants 3 generations of prosperity, and the karma should have ended. Bringing your descendant here today is out of consideration for your sincere heart back then. Whether she gains any good fortune depends on her own self." Li Qiye looked at the statue of the Qi family's ancestor for a while, then turned to look at the myriad-formed true God. He whispered, "You promised me in the past. Today, I have come to take it. As for the Void Gate, I will investigate the truth." Li Qiye had his reasons for choosing the ancestral god prefecture as his fiefdom. In fact, it was related to him. Li Qiye had promised to protect the Qi family for 3 generations, so he often stayed here for a period of time. This time, Li Qiye chose this desolate place for his own reasons. First was to give Qi Xiaodia a chance at good fortune, and also to give the Qi family an opportunity. Second, Li Qiye came for the myriad-form true god's sect guarding art. Third, Li Qiye wanted to find out the truth about the Void Gate, an unsolved mystery from the ages. In a distant era, Li Qiye once rescued the myriad-form true god from the Buddhist burial plateau. Afterward, the myriad-form true god left behind his sect-guarding art in repayment for the rescue. Li Qiye had not taken the myriad-form true god's sect-guarding art, the 1,000 hands reversing the 9 worlds, until now. This trip to the eastern 100 cities happened to pass through this land, so Li Qiye decided to retrieve the sect-guarding art, as he needed it. The next day, Xianxia woke up very early, but Li Qiye was even earlier than her. Li Qiye stood in the main hall, facing the statue of the myriad-form true god. Li Qiye adopted a strange posture, raising both hands to shoulder level, palms facing out, standing on one leg, in a half-squat. Just as Xianxia found it strange, Li Qiye suddenly moved. He spun around on his toes like a top, with incredible speed, spinning faster and faster. Xianxia watched until she became dizzy. Just as Xianxia felt dizzy, Li Qiye suddenly vanished. Xianxia jumped in surprise. She rubbed her eyes, and indeed, Li Qiye was nowhere to be seen. She had not been mistaken. Xianxia was terrified. It was too strange. Li Qiye was standing there just now, so how did he suddenly disappear? Xianxia had been looking at Li Qiye the whole time, yet he had vanished silently. Li Qiye disappeared for a long time. Xianxia went from calm to fear. Xianxia anxiously shouted, "Hey, stop joking. I don't want to play with you." Buzz, 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 buzz. Just as Xianxia was terrified, the myriad-form true god suddenly glowed brightly. A circle of light briefly flashed on the statue's chest. Li Qiye jumped out from that circle of light. Xianxia was startled, her mind blank. Xianxia looked at Li Qiye, then glanced at the myriad-form true god statue. Xianxia regained her senses, jumped up, and exclaimed in shock, There's a secret inside." At this moment, Xianxia suddenly realized that the myriad-form true god statue was not an ordinary statue. That goes without saying. Li Qiye had already retrieved the myriad-form true god's sect-guarding art, the 1,000 hands reversing the 9 worlds. This was one of the reasons for his trip here. Li Qiye glanced at Xianxia and said, "Did you think I was so idle as to run all the way to this remote place just for sightseeing?" Xianxia was stunned. She hadn't expected an old temple to hold a secret known to no one. Xianxia regained her composure, took a deep breath, and said, "What kind of temple is this?" Li Qiye did not answer the question. He stood before the statue of the 100 Battles Divine Emperor, the Qi family's ancestor, and said in a solemn voice to Xianxia, "Sit down." Xianxia was startled. She suddenly realized something and stepped forward, sitting down in the spot Li Qiye indicated. 5 centers observe the heavens, 5 limbs connect with the earth. Li Qiye corrected Xianxia's posture, guiding her into meditation. After Xianxia entered meditation, Li Qiye instructed, "Look at your ancestors' eyes. Keep staring fixedly at those eyes." Xianxia hurriedly raised her eyes to look at her ancestor's statue, staring directly at the eyes, but she could not see them. Li Qiye said in a deep voice, instructing Xianxia, "Don't look with your eyes. Look with your heart. This thing cannot be seen with the mortal eye." Li Qiye's expression was serious, like a strict teacher. Xianxia followed Li Qiye's instructions, looking at her ancestors' statue's eyes, but no matter how hard she looked, she could not see them, unable to discern the statue's eyes. Xianxia tried repeatedly, and though unwilling, she had to accept the truth. Still nothing. Xianxia followed Li Qiye's guidance. No matter how hard she tried, she still could not see the eyes of the Qi family ancestor's statue. Xianxia tried many times, but still failed. Finally, Li Qiye said, "Let me look at your eyes." Xianxia turned her face. Li Qiye lifted her face with both hands, gently pulling back her eyelids to carefully observe her pupils. The two were very close. Their breaths mingled on each other's faces. Li Qiye was indifferent, but Xianxia's face felt hot. This was the first time in her life Xianxia had been so close to a member of the opposite sex. She was awkward and didn't know what to do. Qi Xiaodia's eyes had a faint silvery golden color, barely noticeable unless one looked closely. Li Qiye carefully observed Qi Xiaodia's pupils, finally releasing his hands and shaking his head. Li Qiye's head shake gave Qi Xiaodia a bad premonition, as if she had missed something. "What's wrong?" Li Qiye did not answer. He instructed Qi Xiaodia. "Stay here. I'll be out for a period of time." After speaking, Li Qiye resolutely left. Qi Xiaodia was stunned. She hadn't had a chance to ask before Li Qiye departed. Qi Xiaodia was not the type to give up easily. After Li Qiye left, she followed his method, repeatedly trying to look at the eyes of the Qi family ancestor's statue. But no matter how many times Qi Xiaodia looked, she still did not succeed. She could not see the statue's eyes. Qi Xiaodia realized her effort was futile. She understood that she lacked something. She herself was not clear on what it was, perhaps only Li Qiye knew. Li Qiye left, and days passed without any news. Initially, Qi Xiaodia thought Li Qiye was busy with something and was simply delayed, so she wasn't too concerned. But as days turned into weeks and Li Qiye still didn't return, Qi Xiaodia's heart grew cold. Had Li Qiye left and not returned? Or rather, had Li Qiye abandoned Qi Xiaodia? Qi Xiaodia was distracted, her mind filled with turmoil and wandering thoughts. Finally, Qi Xiaodia calmed down, alone in the ancestral god temple. Li Qiye was gone for a full 3 months, until one morning. Qi Xiaodia woke up very early, intending to cultivate. As she stepped out into the main hall, she was startled. There was a person in the great hall. Qi Xiaodia was startled and then clearly saw Li Qiye sitting in the main hall. She cried out happily. "You're back." Li Qiye ignored Qi Xiaodia. With one hand, he held up a myriad furnace divine tripod, and with the other, he controlled the furnace fire, refining a type of medicinal paste. A fragrant medicinal scent wafted from the cauldron. Li Qiye shouted in a deep voice. "Rise." Li Qiye flipped over a jade cup, drawing the medicinal paste from the furnace into it. The paste was emerald green. Although it had just been taken out. It was not hot but slightly cool. Qi Xiaodia, standing beside Li Qiye, could feel the coolness. Li Qiye called Qi Xiaodia. "Come over here quickly." As soon as Qi Xiaodia approached, Li Qiye told her to sit down. "I am about to apply the medicinal paste to your eyes. It will be very painful. Try to endure it." Li Qiye's words made Qi Xiaodia hesitate. Li Qiye waved his hand and said, "Don't dither anymore. I had to pay a favor to the war god temple to refine this medicinal paste. If you keep standing there, the medicine will heat up, wasting my rare peerless medicinal ingredients." Thank you for listening to the story on KTN Storyverse. Please like and subscribe to support the channel.